Ron, because during the campaign, I don't remember what exactly she said, but on numerous instances would comment on different ways in which I might not be quite qualified to be president. Of course, I disagree with hell like her on that being a criteria to be the US president is her description of whether or not you're an Indian. Because her view is that in order to actually be a US president, you got to be even more American, right? So you're not fully American if your parents weren't from the United States of America.
If you were to say of the voters bloc, what percentage of the voter bloc agrees with her?
During a recent appearance on the PBD podcast, former Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy reflected on his discussion with Ann Coulter, in which Ann Coulter made clear that while she favored him in the field of Republican candidates, said that he was brilliant, articulate, all of that, she just couldn't get herself to vote for him because of one reason. And if you didn't catch that moment, or if you need a refresher, here it is.
You are so bright and articulate, and I guess I can call you articulate since you're not an American black. Oh, and I agreed with many, many things you said during, in fact, probably more than most other candidates when you were running for president, but I still would not have voted for you because you're an Indian.
Waz, as an American black, how do you feel about Ann Coulter's statements there?
You know, it's funny because that is one of the stereotypical things, particularly amongst educated black people, that they feel like they're almost being derisively patted on the head whenever a white person calls them articulate. That is a legitimate thing that people get upset about. That black people get upset about. It's why are they calling me articulate? That's a real thing. That Ann Coulter feels so annoyed by it herself. Oh, I don't even get to call smart people smart. It's just speaks to her own sort of racial psychosis. It's kind of funny.
She's insane. And by the way, who? Listen, who refers to people that way? Anyway, okay. So there was the statement, un-American black. I just find that so weird and crass. But also telling someone to their face, I really liked you out of the Republican candidates in the primary. I think you're brilliant, but you're Indian, even though you were born in Ohio.
Yeah, it's a cartoonish racism, right? It's a racism from a Dave Chappelle skit, basically, where this lady's saying you have all of the qualifications, you seem like an incredible candidate, but literally because your parents are from a place that's not America, I can't vote for you. Mind you, nobody's actually from America. That's the thing, outside of Native Americans or indigenous people, nobody's actually from here. So making that case it's obviously racist, but it's also very stupid.
Yeah, I mean, look, I agree that it's very stupid. The other thing that I have to confess I wasn't really fully aware of is that I don't know what percentage of Americans feel the way that she feels, but apparently there is I guess a feeling that even if you were born in the United States, if your parents were immigrants, including legal immigrants, right? If your parents were legal immigrants, they weren't born, in this country, but they came here and you were born in this country, you're still not American enough for people like Ann Coulter. So apparently you have to be what, 20th generation or something to qualify as an American. And as a child of immigrants myself, who was born in Hollywood, California, I'd like to tell her to F off. Okay, telling me as an American that I'm not American enough disgusts me. I love this country. And I think loving this country means loving what it means to be American. American means all different backgrounds coming together, right? She's disgusting. I don't mean to get derailed by re-entering a conversation about her. I want to go to Vivek Ramaswamy's reflections of that conversation as he's talking to Paul Patrick David.
Pausing here to deliver some honest truth as we do in our news coverage as well. TYT is facing challenges, guys, as the entire industry is. You know who could make the difference? You. If you hit the join button below, it's gonna make all the difference and keep us in business. We appreciate you, thank you.
Let's take a look at the next clip because he gets into whether or not Ann Coulter is an anomaly in the Republican Party or if Vivek has noticed this as something that's a little more widespread.
if you were to say of the voters bloc, what percentage of the voter bloc agrees with her?
So say in the Republican primary,
in the Republican primary, to say, you know what,
question.
I'm not going to, even if it's 1%, 2%, 3%, what do you think it is?
So I will tell you this with confidence. It is a lot higher than I believed it was a year ago.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's a lot higher than I believe you would think it is too.
Interesting.
Which is why, and I said this on social media, and some people hit me on the left from it. I said I respect her for saying it, even though I disagree. Right. Because at least she has the spine to say in public what many other people, not a majority, not even close to a majority, but a lot of people. She's not alone. She is voicing a view that I think is widespread.
Which is a fascinating statement to hear from Vivek Ramaswamy, considering the fact that back in August of 2023, he was in hot water for saying this.
I'm sure the boogeyman white supremacist exists somewhere in America. I've just never met him. Never seen one. Never met one in my life, right? Maybe I'll meet a unicorn sooner.
So before we get to some more clips from the podcast, it's just interesting because I would venture to say that he's experienced, terrible comments in the past. But when he was campaigning, he's like, what? Racism? What racism?
Look, I think when you're campaigning, you do want to endear yourself to the people you're campaigning to, right? Like whose vote you're courting. And so like the idea that he would go out and say that there's not a lot of racists in the Republican Party or like cartoonish racism doesn't exist. Cool. Obviously, and this is a conversation that always happens when it comes to comparing Democrats and Republicans, is this idea that even if you want to say that not all Republicans are racist, most of the most cartoonishly racist people in our country do vote Republican. Like that's just seems like an obvious fact that I think he's speaking to. But what I thought was hilarious about Ann Coulter and what she was saying, that I don't think most of these Republican voters that he was encountering are making the case. She was saying that she believes in like this WASP, work ethic, basically this Protestant work ethic, which means guys like people who can trace their descendants to the freaking Mayflower, right? And not in like how she would say like Catholic whites, Irish, Italian, Greeks, so on and so forth, right? Like this idea that the original whites of America, like she's making a delineation between the whites. Just so people can understand that.
You know what, Waz? It's such a good point. And I didn't really fully absorb that until you laid it out the way you just did. It's so true. Like even if you're a white American, you're still not good enough.
No.
Like that's amazing.
Because I think it's something that Tucker Carlson, a view that he also espouses. It's like why he never liked Bill O'Reilly, because he's this Irish dude, right? Like basically a Catholic white. Like there used to be anyway. Our country used to be ran by all of these WASP guys, like literally like George Bush, probably him and Mitt Romney, like the last of these WASP types who could like literally give you artifacts from the Mayflower.
And you know what? To Ann Coulter's point, hardest working people in America, right?
Right.
Mitt Romney, George Bush, hardest working people in America.
These guys, they're just in the mud, in the soil. But that group, that class of people has faded into obscurity for so long. Like the idea that you'd be trying to bring the WASP back is just crazy. Like it's over for that. Like the power structure is whatever whites you want to choose, Jewish people, Italian people, Greek people. And of course it's come to include black people and Latin people. And like, honestly, the power structure doesn't really care about diversity. Like they found that a diverse amount of set of people will be willing to carry out the deeds of what it means to be in power in our country and in our world. And so Ann Coulter is she's a dinosaur. She
really is. She really
it's
is.
Sad, honestly.
It's sad not only because she has this like antiquated dinosaur-like mentality, but also she's so consumed by like these weird random hatreds of people that like I don't know if this makes me a bad person, but like a white person's a white person. Like I don't like think about like, ooh, are you a WASP? Or are you do your ancestors come from Ireland?
So I will say
I don't care.
That is your attitude towards it is a very I would say Western attitude, right? Like when I've made friends from, say, Pacific Northwest, and it's like, oh, you're a white person, but like, what kind of white person, right? And it's just like, oh, we're just white in the Pacific Northwest. In New York, like, it is a thing. Like, a lot of bars in Manhattan have an Irish flag outside of it, right? You're gonna see, like, there is no Italian person you will meet that doesn't have a tattoo, that doesn't have the flag on the mirror in the car, that doesn't have something to let you know of their, their family's heritage, right? So in the Northeast, it's a big thing, because it used to be this huge divide about how the power was separated, right? And nowadays, like, we all know, none of that matters.
It doesn't matter
at all.
Yeah,
like at all, it doesn't matter.
So you mentioned how, look, I think that the topic of racism is embellished to an extent on both sides, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
On the right, you'll have this denial that it even exists, right? And that's why, we played that video of Vivek Ramaswamy saying, like, what, racism? White supremacy, what? I've never seen it, right?
Right.
But then on, the left, I think that they kind of exaggerate how much of an issue it is. And by the way, as they do that, I think there's also this nefarious form of racism that I'm noticing that bothers me almost, I don't want to say it bothers me more, but it's a little more like low key, but has really negative effects on people's lives. And what I'm referring to is like the bigotry of low expectations. And I see that among people on the left in regard to things like education, like school districts throwing out AP programs or honor roll programs because there's a disparity in enrollment among, Latino students or Black students. And it's like, you don't just get rid of the program, you help the students rise to the occasion, right? Because obviously they have the capacity to do great things. You just have to believe in them and help them. That's like, I think that's the right response, not just saying, nah, they can't do it, so let's just throw this out because the numbers don't look good.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, we hesitate to criticize those efforts because obviously you and I would agree that comes from a sort of good faith origin, right? Like this idea that we want to make schools more equitable for all the students, but just trying to like insinuate that like, oh, well, the Blacks and Latinos, they just can't do the AP, so we got to get rid of it. Like, I think, like you said, that's its own soft bigotry. And the thing that sort of animates me the most, honestly, Anna, is how elite minorities co-opt the discussion around what is racial problems, right? Like, and I will use this example all the time. Like when I have to hear a Black elite person, white collar person, my cohort, quite frankly, pretend that some white lady at their job maybe touching their hair or attempting to touch their hair is akin to getting lashes as a slave. And I'm just like, guys, we can't trivialize like slavery this way and say, well, this is our cross to bear these days. Like, yes, obviously that white lady shouldn't be doing that at your job. Yeah, you feel me? But at the same time, like, come on. Let's be better. I think my mic fell.
Yeah, no, I totally get what you mean. I think equating those two very different forms of, one is a microaggression that I do not think anyone should, like, don't touch anyone at work. How about that?
Of course, yes.
But yeah, comparing it to something far more vicious and violent is kind of ridiculous. But I do want to just quickly go back to the conversation Vivek Ramaswamy was having, because he had more fascinating things to say about the perspective of racists in America. And it goes back to what you were referring to earlier in terms of, what it means to be an American and how some don't think that natural born citizens are American enough. Let's watch.
There were people on social media who would make an argument. It wasn't on ethnicity, and this is part of Ann's point too. It's the point that your parents were immigrants to this country, and so you are truly not at the highest level of being American to be president of the United States.
Right.
So we had a number of people that would say that occasionally. A much more common one, though, for people to my face was, I would love to vote for you. It's difficult for me to vote for somebody else because I agree with you more, but I can't do that because you are Hindu. That came up a lot, especially in Iowa.
Oh, okay, good. So they refused to vote for him, not only because he's Indian, but also because of his religion. So great, good to learn about that. Geez, that's awful. But look, I didn't agree with a lot of what Ramaswamy had to say as a candidate, right? It wasn't about his, who cares about his identity? Like that's like the most irrelevant thing about him, to be quite honest. Like, not trying to trash his identity and say it doesn't matter, but it doesn't matter in terms of why I would or would not vote for him. And I wanna get to that place as a country where we're actually judging the substance of a person, what they bring to the table, as opposed to all of these other peripheral things that don't matter at all.
So I think a couple of things have happened, right? I think right after Obama's second election, Mike Brown, all of the things that happened at Ferguson, of course, like sort of crescendoing around George Floyd, the conversation has been so identitarian, right?
Yes.
And a lot of it has been coming from the left, but like, if you want to insist upon people conceive of themselves as they're raced first, inevitably what is going to also happen is that the people who we call white will also be doing that, right? And I think that's the part that I think the left has never really grappled with when it comes to all of the identitarian things that we did, for 10 years. And by the way, I don't absolve myself. I participated in it. In it too. I was wrapped up in it. It was a highly charged, highly emotional moment. But I do think that like to pretend that like white people ain't get the message, that they're white first too, the idea that message wouldn't have filtered out, I think was false. But I do have hope, because I think everybody has sort of taken a deep breath and realized like, all right, the stuff that we was doing in 2020 might have been a little overcooked on the identity politics side of it.
I'm in that camp for sure. I'm in that camp for sure. If I could point to a year that I'm probably the most unhappy with myself about, it was that year. But to your point, it was an emotional year. And I think that, when you lead your commentary from a place of emotion rather than taking a breath and really thinking things through, you're gonna make some mistakes. So I've tried to correct some of those.
Just one last thing on that, because obviously I'm somebody who think race matters in America. I'm not a freaking idiot, I get that. But I just remember a crazy conversation I had on Twitter with people that I'm friends with. And I had just tried to point out, I was just like, yo, just so y'all know, more white people get killed by the cops by number. All of those white people are poor as hell. All of those white people are probably like on drugs, have some mental health issues, yada, yada, yada. But like, white people get killed more by the police. And I think if we would address this police problem as not being strictly a racial thing and also like an instrument to keep the downtrodden as possible, be they white, black, yellow, whatever, I think we would do better in
reforming policing.
Yes.
Yeah, totally, I agree.
Sort of corralling what they do. Oh my God, people went nuts.
I know.
They started talking to me like I was some kind of Uncle Tom.
WASP said it, not me. WASP said it. WASP said it, okay? Just kidding. But I do think that you make a really good point there, and framing is kind of everything, because the way you frame your arguments can either persuade or dissuade people to join your cause. And I think, making the issue of police brutality a purely racial issue kind of hindered any possibility, or maybe even prevented a possibility of real reforms that I think are necessary when it comes to policing.
Yes, and people need to realize that if you're trying to engage in politics, what does that mean? Is bringing together a broad coalition of people in order to achieve a goal or an end. It's not to feel better about yourself.
Yes, I agree.
It's just not. So like, if you want to engage in politics, making the case for something, bringing a wide swath of people together should be the point.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.